Have you ever wanted to know what you can do to bridge the gap in your unique differences in marriage? We attract our opposites for a reason. They serve us in some way, and in other ways, they might drive us crazy. This course will make the difference for you if you are willing to understand, accept, appreciate, and honor our unique various character traits in each of us in relationship. I have studied the top experts in marriage, learning methods to build a more vibrant relationship, and have several classes here already as a 12-course Love Zone marriage program. But more importantly, I have applied my learning and skills to a marriage of 26 plus years, the 4 latest years happy, and pass my learning and experiences in the trenches on to you. The topics of this course include attachment styles, cave, wave, or lighthouse, withdraw, pursue patterns, personalities, 3 different typing systems, the drama triangle, boundaries in marriage, the feminine and masculine, attachment and differentiation, satisfying needs, marriage alchemy, my guy, my gal guide, a capstone project. You will have regular opportunities for helpful quizzes and practicing what you are learning. Don't skimp. These exercises teach valuable skills and insights. This is intended mostly for married females, but anyone who is interested in strengthening relationships by honoring individual differences will benefit, as you will learn important considerations in spouse compatibility most experts don't clue us in on. If you are ready to understand how our differences in marriage can really work for us and are ready to be a strong partner in marriage, here we go. So jump in with the introduction experience, the cave. I want to start with the cave experience. This will require you to find a quiet place where you can close your eyes and reach inward. Okay, if you're ready, close your eyes and relax. Take a deep breath. Imagine you see the entrance to a cave. It looks so enticing. You are drawn to the dark recess of the opening. You flick on your phone flashlight as you enter. Wow, it looks so intriguing in here, and there are so many options of which way you could go. You choose that way, that looks so interesting, and continue down the dark corridor, your phone light accenting the sparkles of the rocks all around you. You can't wait to see what's around the next bend, and the next, and the next, and soon you lose concept of time and direction. You haven't been paying attention to your phone, but suddenly your flashlight goes dark, and you now have no idea where you are or which direction to get back from where you came from. Your phone is dead. It maybe wouldn't work through the thick rock walls anyway. But you have one option. You can contact one person, and they will be there in an instant with plenty of light and a way out. Who will you contact? Don't overthink this. The first person that comes to your mind. What is the relationship you have with this person? Do they have some authority in your life, and you completely trust their ability to be there for you? Is it someone you contact often or not? Have they always been there for you in the past? Are they mortal or immortal? Real or fictional? Are they related to you? Often people will answer that they counted on a parent who knew that they would do anything to rescue them. Was it your spouse? This experience is telling because it tests your attachment figure, your attachment style. It tests your maturity, as in, why are you still crying out to your mom or dad? Your faith. Did you cry out to Jesus Christ like I did? There are 4 types of attachment. 1, avoidant. You would rather not depend on them. In this cave scenario, you didn't even consider your spouse in the cave. You'll figure a way out. 2, the anxious attachment. Resistant, then clingy. You're not sure who to call on. You think of someone, then reject the idea. 3, disorganized. Unpredictable and inconsistent behavior, which leads to fear and a lack of reliability. You couldn't think of anyone to help you out in your pickle. And the ideal, the secure attachment. Someone you know will be there for you. And secure attachments are begun with a primary attachment figure early in life, usually your first caretaker or caretakers. I'm not saying there's something wrong with you if you didn't choose your spouse, but it is telling about the kind of relationship you have one with another and whether you'll be there for each other. In this course, I support both healthy attachment and differentiation as we navigate how our attachment style, personality, and relationship patterns affect successful marriage. So let's jump into the first section, cave, wave, or lighthouse. Cave, wave, or lighthouse. Attachment styles. It was Dan and Charlotte's first camping trip in the mountains with baby Jake, their 9-month-old boy. They pulled out the crisp tent, first use of this adventurous wedding gift, and the decades-old sleeping bags borrowed from their parents, and they settled in. Not long after they lay down to enjoy the crisp mountain air, they heard gunshots. Charlotte asked Dan in alarm, "Do you think that's really a gun going off or just a muffler backfiring?" Dan answered, "Oh, that was a gun." Charlotte looked down at little Jake and then at the tent wall as if she could see through it. Would a bullet make it through the tent, new as it was? Probably, but she tried to brush it off and snuggle in. And then she heard it again, and again. It sounded pretty close. "Dan, I think we should leave. I'm nervous about those guns." Dan answered, "They're probably just a bunch of drunk college kids. Just ignore them," as Charlotte's anxiety increased. Charlotte theorized out loud, "We should have brought a gun too. What if they come close to our campsite?" They could hear whooping and hollering now. Dan reasoned, "Guns only make things worse. We're not bringing a gun camping for protection. They'll probably settle down in a little while." Charlotte wrapped baby Jake up as best she could as she finally fell asleep, mid-sentence in a repeating prayer. "Please, God, don't let them accidentally shoot us." Thus began anxiety-ridden camping trips for their family. As it grew, baby by baby, filling that tent that soon became old and saggy. As Charlotte mused about this experience to me, she mentioned, "What Dan could have said all those years ago was, 'I'm here for you. I'll protect you. And if it gets worse, we'll leave,' which would have been a secure attachment reaction from Dan. Instead, Charlotte always felt a degree of anxiety that she was on her own for protection and that Dan wasn't really there for her in her fear. An anxious attachment. Let's look at the various attachment styles in a model that compares and contrasts avoidance and anxiety levels, as well as negative and positive models of self and others. We have, at the top of the attachment styles model, positive model of others, low avoidance. The first thing we have on the left is secure, and this goes along with the left-hand side of the model, positive model of self, and low anxiety. So we have low avoidance and low anxiety. Then on the right-hand side, with positive model of others and low avoidance, we have a negative model of self and high anxiety. This is an anxious attachment style. In the bottom left quadrant, we have avoidant, which is low anxiety and high avoidance, a positive model of self and a negative model of others. And then finally, on the right-hand lower quadrant of the attachment styles, we have fearful, otherwise known as disorganized. This is a negative model of self, high anxiety, and a negative model of others, high avoidance. So let's break each of these down a little bit. Secure. She can trust others and be trusted, love and accept love, and get close to others with relative ease. She has a healthy communication style and can ask for help when needed. She can self-regulate emotions. She is comfortable with intimacy. The secure attachment style comprises 50% of relationships. This secure person might say, I find it relatively easy to get close to others and am comfortable depending on them and having them depend on me. I don't often worry about being abandoned or about someone getting too close to me. The next, anxious attachment style. Both resistant and then clinging, with a deep fear of abandonment, and she needs constant reassurance. This is a desperate intimacy, which makes up 20% of attachment styles. She might say, I find that others are reluctant to get as close as I would like. I often worry that my partner doesn't really love me or won't want to stay with me. I want to merge completely with him, and this desire sometimes scares him away. I've heard it said, you can't have anxiety and true intimacy as they are at odds with one another. Anxiety assumes over-control of self in a future context. The third attachment style is avoidant. Relationships can make her feel suffocated. She has difficulty expressing emotions and tends to emotionally withdraw. She is less likely to ask for help. She has a fear of intimacy, and this makes up 25% of relationships. She might say, I am somewhat uncomfortable being close to others. I find it difficult to trust them completely, difficult to allow myself to depend on them. I am nervous when anyone gets too close, and often love partners want me to be more intimate than I feel comfortable being. Brendan Burchard says, avoidance is the best short-term strategy to escape conflict and the best long-term strategy to ensure suffering. The fourth attachment style is fearful or disorganized. She desperately craves affection and wants to avoid it at all costs. She is torn between anxious and avoidant. She has a fear of rejection and a low self-worth. She has difficulty and confusion about intimacy, and this makes up 5% of relationships. She might say, I avoid becoming emotionally attached to my spouse, though I really want to. Because my emotions have been yanked around so much, I experience mistrust or a lack of confidence in my spouse. According to attachment theory, researched by John Bowlby, once we leave our primary attachment figure in our youth, we inherently seek for someone to take that place. God intended for the man and woman to be the attachment figure in marriage. 1 Corinthians 11:11 says, Neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man in the Lord. You and your spouse are assigned to each other's utmost well-being, to be a blessing one to another. Debbie Gilmore, licensed marriage family therapist and teacher of Sue Johnson's emotional freedom technique, tells us the ABCs of attachment. A. Acceptance. B. Belonging. C. Comfort. And S. Safety. She supports that our attachment through the ABCs creates a self-worth connection. While I believe there is merit to this, we expect to get something out of marriage after all. Differentiation speaks of our having our own back, which I'll discuss in a future section. The first year of marriage is essentially the audition. This is where a couple finds out about each other such that they can be each other's primary attachment figure. Their likes, their greatest fears, what makes them tick, and what they must have to feel supported are explored. After the audition, our insecurities display themselves and irritation can result, which is normal, expected, and a great opportunity for growth. The problem arises when the audition continues past a year and information about one another is issued rather than gleaned. Basically, they don't take the effort to really know each other or to let down their guard to the depths of creating a secure attachment. Being willing and able to know one another is key in a secure attachment. Couples securely attached, we'll call them lighthouses, are attractive when they are confident in each other. So, are you a cave, one who withdraws, a wave, one who rubber bands back and forth, or a lighthouse? A cave likes to be alone in a quiet place where they can replenish and then they're able to invest. The wave, like a rubber band going back and forth, is coming and going. She tries to be strong alone, then advances to her spouse for fulfilling her needs, and back and forth. And finally, the lighthouse, the secure attachment of give and take. You are strong with yourself and with your spouse. With a lighthouse to lighthouse connection, others are drawn to you because of your union, and the union becomes more effective in your influence around others. One reason attached parents create healthily attached children. Secure attachment, the lighthouse, is of course the ideal. But you are likely here in this course because the ideal hasn't been realized. So I will concentrate here on anxious, the wave, and avoidant, the cave, attachment styles. Fearful and disorganized attachment is anxious and avoidant in the extreme. But I wanted you to be aware of this dynamic in case you identify with that so that you can work on it more specifically if needed, especially in situations of trauma. I would say if you can't determine an attachment style, you probably aren't being true to yourself. You are avoiding conflict. You are being overbearing or living unhealthily another way in your marriage that overshadows your true style. And really, being truly true to yourself is to be secure, a lighthouse, so you're being doubly untrue to yourself by not knowing where you stand. So I'd like you to take the attachment style quiz. Which one do you identify with most? Trust your gut here. 1. I find it relatively easy to get close to my spouse, and I'm comfortable depending on them and having them depend on me. If this feels true to you, then you are secure, a lighthouse. 2. I often worry that they don't really love me or won't want to stay with me. This attachment style is anxious, or the wave that comes and goes. And 3. I am somewhat uncomfortable being close to my spouse. I find it difficult to trust them completely and difficult to allow myself to depend on them. And this one would be avoidant, the cave. We will continue in the next section on to withdraw, pursue patterns. Withdraw, pursue patterns. I remember having a sleepover at a cool girl's house in 4th grade. Her whole family was so cool. Her dad was an architect. Her mom was super pretty and full of spunk. And her big sister was the local beauty pageant winner. Imagine my surprise at the sleepover when my entire stay, her parents yelled angrily at each other across their architecturally super cool house. I thought for sure they were doomed for divorce, though I can't say if they actually ever did. Richard and Linda Eyre, marriage and family experts, describe 3 types of married couples who never fight. 1. A relationship where one is domineering and one is a doormat. One always gets what they want and one gets walked all over to keep the peace. 2. A relationship of 2 uncaring people. They live separate lives and come together for administrative decisions, but because of little interest, they have little reason to fight. And 3. A dead couple, tongue in cheek. Often, we find partners with opposing personality traits. Opposites attract. Controlling and domineering versus laid back and carefree. Caretaking versus apathetic. Introverted and extroverted. We love what we find in them initially, and then it becomes a problem. Why is it you always in charge of the money? Can't you show a little care in the things important? Can't we stay longer at the party? I'm having such a blast. We find often that our needs vary as well as our connection style. I believe one of the biggest challenges of marriage is how to find that sweet spot of getting enough in marriage to make it worth keeping and giving enough while not overgiving to lose yourself. So on one end of the spectrum, we have autonomy, self-government. On the other end, we have dependency. And in the middle, we have connection and intimacy and interdependency. On the one side, too much autonomy, we lose the other. Too much space and you lose your spouse. On the other side, you lose yourself. Too much closeness and you lose yourself. There are 6 F's, responses to stress in marriage. We have the fight, the pursuer, the flee, the withdrawer, freeze, and even fawn, feed, and fornicate. But that goes beyond the scope of our discussion today, as it involves codependency and enmeshment with fawning, and food and pornography, sex addiction with feeder and fornicator. The beginning story of my friend in the architecturally cool house clearly describes the pursuer-pursuer dynamic, the fighter-fighter. I want to concentrate on the withdrawer-pursuer relationship here. So we have the withdrawer to the withdrawer. They just are not in each other's life very much, and they are pretty content, but not close and not connected. The pursuer to the withdrawer. This is the chaser to the person who is running. The pursuer to the pursuer, or like I just mentioned, the fighter to the fighter, and then the withdrawer to the pursuer, which we'll explain in the next coming part. So the first dynamic is withdraw. This is the person in the relationship who holds back. And this conversation that follows is pulled loosely from Gottman.com, Breaking the Pursue-Withdraw Pattern. This spouse, the withdrawer, needs space. They worry, this conflict isn't going to get worked out, or I'm not going to get my needs met. So they shut down and pull away because it's safer to do that. If I put myself out there, the other person will leave. I'm going to be blamed. I'm going to be criticized. We're going to get into a big fight. I don't want to do that because this person is so important to me. I don't want to lose them. They believe about the pursuer. You are too much. Don't overcrowd me. So they avoid the pursuer to minimize contention, overwhelm, and discomfort. This looks like a lack of engagement. What does the burnt out withdrawer look like? Sometimes the withdrawer will get fed up. We call it burning out of being withdrawn. Instead of withdrawing, they'll come out and they'll fight. Then you've got fight-fight or pursuer-pursuer when the withdrawer turns toward the pursuer. When the withdrawer pursues, the first pursuer feels attacked. We'll return to this dynamic in a moment. Let's go to the pursuer's thought about the withdrawer. So the pursuer is always wanting more. The pursuer feels threatened by the withdrawer's impending departure, triggering in them old patterns of abandonment. They think, this conflict isn't going to get worked out, so they complain or push for more connection. Rather than trying to ignore their own needs, their own desires, or their own feelings as withdrawers often do, the pursuing partner tends to want to work it out. They want to talk about it, examine their own feelings, and understand their partner's feelings. The pursuing partner has an internal model that says talking about this is going to solve it. Sharing what's going on for them and trying to understand what's going on for their partner is the way to safety. A lot of times for couples, particularly in highly escalated situations where they don't have a lot of support outside the relationship, people feel very isolated. They feel very alone. Any connection, even a fight, is better than no connection. That's when they're likely to get critical. A lot of times it's a "how dare you leave me" kind of thing. The only real connection they oftentimes have is fighting, which ends up being destructive. The pursuer has increased expectations, demanding intimacy, which really can't be intimacy if there's no choice. I expect you always to be there for me. You aren't giving me enough attention. The burnt out pursuer. At its extreme, you'll have a pursuer who gets burned out and withdraws, and you have withdraw. So what about when the opposites happen in withdraw pursuit? When each style turns on each other, there will be a momentary condition of the withdrawer feeling dropped when the pursuer withdraws, and the pursuer feeling attacked when the withdrawer pursues. If the withdrawer feels dropped, they may find something to fill the push that continues reasons to withdraw, like maybe a new hobby or a friend when their spouse is no longer breathing down their neck. Or they turn toward their spouse and create a new dynamic in their relationship. The withdrawer can choose to reconnect because the pressure is gladly off. The latter happens if the pursuer is willing to become something the withdrawer wants to be part of. Now with the pursuer's opposite, the withdrawer pursues. When the pursuer stops feeling attacked, They can learn to satisfy their needs in other ways to not turn the withdrawer away, and they can work to become pleasant, admirable company now that their partner is turned to them. This means decreasing expectation on the pursuer part and learning to unconditionally love and accept the other. This is a counterintuitive but powerful way to connect. Simply understanding what each other is doing is huge. The awareness of what they do because they love you. Jason Gaddis of therelationshipschool.com says, a great start is to recognize should statements. As soon as you issue a should, turn it back to yourself and determine what it is you think you should do that you really don't have to. Then work to fix it. Take the responsibility for yourself. Even if it's, I feel so upset, instead of, you make me so upset. It's really important for couples to be able to understand that underneath this pursue-withdraw pattern, most of the time people tend to see the other person as really important. But both people end up feeling unloved, hurt, abandoned, uncared about, and it's very painful for them, which is why this relationship pattern tends to chew up relationships and destroy them. That's one of the reasons why this pattern undermines people's sense of safety, not only in the relationship, but in their world in general. It can cause a lot of trauma for people in its extreme. Couples may go from either, it's about me, I'm bad, I'm unlovable, to seeing their partner as bad, sick, or evil. With the pursuer to withdrawer situation, becoming something the withdrawer wants to be around is similar to allowing a squirrel to eat out of your hand instead of snatching it when it gets close, or continually frightening it into the forest. So think about it. When a person offers bread on their hand for the squirrel will approach tentatively and may eventually accept the offering. With any sudden movements from the person, that squirrel scampers away, only to need its love won over and over again with patience and gentleness. So let's look at 3 signs you have the effect of relational trauma and how it's making you sabotage your perfect relationship right now, just like the squirrel. 1. You feel the hand that feeds you will grasp at you, forcing you to run and hide repeatedly, like in the past. You realize it's unrealistic to be skittish, but your primal brain acts before your mind makes sense of your fear. Though you may want to reach out for the goods, your fear overrides and pushes away the very love you need. 2. You feel your very best option for safety is isolating. Again, the brain does what it knows best, even if it means protecting you by keeping you deep in the dark forest, away from those who may help and love you. 3. You feel exhausted from the many half attempts to get what you need, but never find. It takes effort to hold on to your trauma, with further effort spent for help in ways that don't satisfy, leaving little for you and your spouse for building hope and happiness together. Now, imagine that cute little squirrel climbing up on the fleshy hand, nibbling the crust as it curiously shifts its beady eyes. It's okay where it is and accepts the warmth of its loving companion. So the squirrel is in the withdraw situation in extreme times of stress in a marriage. Jason Gaddis says, the biggest marital challenge is to regulate your upset. He says our nervous system is our enemy in relationships because our nervous reactions are programmed by repeated stimulus that become habit and are instantly triggered, which then affects our response. Because the nervous system is the first responder, friendly physical reactions can calm the nervous reaction. Your positive use of physical touch can soothe, as in a little back rub for comfort. Physical touch can immediately soften further arguments so a couple can move from hard emotions to soft emotions and get what is really bothering them and what they can do about it. Jason Gaddis concludes, so there will be upset and conflict in marriage, and our spouse plays that perfect role for us to figure ourselves out. So just get it out in the open. I'm going to trigger you and you me, so let's accept it and know there's something to be learned. Because they are set up as that perfect partner. We can know our grievances can initiate our growth if done well. So here's a simple beginning hack for the withdraw-pursue relational styles. Temporarily do the opposite to reassure them. If they withdraw, the pursuer gives them comfort and support for a moment, the wave, and leaves them be. The withdrawer may not realize or express that they want this, but it calms and reassures them for the pursuer to give them a moment's consideration, then honor the withdrawer's need for the cave. A quick squeeze from the pursuer and let the withdrawer go leaves them both in a good spirit. If the pursuer is anxious, the withdrawer calms them and says that you're going to be there for them. Let the pursuer cling in their wave-like way, arm around them, stay a little longer than you normally might, but then do what you need to do for you, the withdrawer, which may be to retreat to your cave. How can couples start having healthy conversations? They can start by talking about their deeper underlying needs. A lot of times couples will talk about money, kids, sex, whatever the conflict area is, but underneath it is, I need to know that you value my opinion, or I need to know that you value and respect me. Slow down and think, okay, what do I want here? What does my spouse need? What do I need? Maybe my spouse needs to know that his or her opinion is important to me, even if I disagree with it. Maybe my spouse needs to know that I care. Maybe my spouse needs to know that I'm not going to get critical like I have in the past. Maybe my spouse needs to know that I'm not going to go away like I have been for years. Instead, I'm going to work against the damaging pattern. Being able to talk about this in a soft, reasonable way is powerful. It can break the pursue-withdraw pattern and replace it with a cycle that's supportive, loving, and nurturing. It's really helpful for couples to map it out, to draw a cycle and identify key points of why they do what they do. So we start with 1, the behavior, whatever the behavior is of the withdrawer or the pursuer. 2, their view of self and spouse, like good guy, bad guy. 3, what are their reactive emotions and their coping skills? 4, recognize the withdraw-pursue patterns, and based upon what we just discussed, why they do it. 5, identify soft primary emotions. What's really going on? And then 6, express basic needs and wants. Sometimes just being able to draw it out changes things to, okay, what do I really need in a situation? How could I ask my spouse for those things in a way that's not going to be threatening, that isn't going to trigger my spouse's wounds or raw spots, and then be okay with the outcome, no matter how it plays out? So I invite you to fill out the withdraw-pursue cycle in your marriage from both of your views. We will talk more about personality in the next section. I have always loved personality assessments, maybe because they validate where I may not conform with the norm, and because I see where inconsistencies in marriage show up because of our differences. Let's begin with introversion, extroversion. Take a horizontal water bottle half full. Like the amount of water in this bottle, we have so much energy to use in interacting with our inner and outer world. The energy will go somewhere and come from somewhere. If you draw your energy from outside sources, sociability being key, then all that extroverted energy is used in this largely external way. You don't leave much on the other side for drawing energy from your inner world. But now if we shift the bottle the other direction, this end still being the extroverted energy side, you see that an introverted person gets much of their energy from their internal world. If you are married to someone with extroverted energy, they will want to keep the one end full of the things that energize them in a mostly social way. Yet if you are the introverted spouse, you don't have much energy source on the other end to sustain the external socializing, if we have the extroverted tipped on the way that fills them the most. And if you are extroverted and shift the water to where the introvert is energized by their internal world, you don't have enough to keep you supplied as the extrovert. Yet you are both attracted to the opposites in each other, which serves you both to some degree. One doesn't like to go vacationing as much as the other, but the introverted spouse is glad when the extroverted spouse pulls them out to get some fresh air and perspective. And the extrovert enjoys the groundedness and calm they receive from the more reflective and still introverted partner. When introversion becomes too imbalanced, it might be hard to satisfy the other spouse when it's so tipped in one direction and not the other. Energies in extremes. We will explore this more as we dip into the various personality typing tests, 3 of my favorite, which we will explore here. I've learned that personality tests can direct you in how you're able to cope with life and recharge to be able to move in the direction that either makes a weakness a strength or that strengthens a strength. Understanding strengths helps you know why you do what you do and why your spouse does what they do. One of the most popular personality assessments is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or the MBTI. Humanity is boiled down into 16 different personalities, which I'll present to you in a moment in Star Wars style. These personality differences compare and contrast thinking and feeling, T and F, how you are more in your mind or your heart, introversion and extroversion, I and E, how you draw and spend energy, sensing and intuition, factual versus finding the deeper meaning, and judging and perceiving, how you are planned or spontaneous. These things in opposition can, of course, create conflict. So here are the 16 types, Star Wars style. ISTJ, Owen Lars, the inspector. They are responsible, loyal, and hardworking, have an acute sense of right and wrong, and work to preserve established norms and traditions. Somewhat reserved and prefer to work alone, but can make great team members if the need arises. Characterized by the ability to work hard and make sacrifices to keep society running smoothly. ISFJ, C3PO, the protector. Traditional, loyal, quiet, and kind. Extremely intuitive about people and sensitive to others' needs. Often fear change and try hard to maintain peace and order. Tend to serve behind the scenes without seeking recognition. Like routine and possess excellent follow-through skills. Characterized by the ability to identify the needs of others and meet them selflessly. ISTP, Chewbacca, the crafter. Independent and adventurous, yet quiet and reserved. Interested in how and why things work. Adaptable and spontaneous, liking to live in the moment. Loyal to their peers and to their internal value systems, but not overly concerned with respecting rules if they get in the way. Characterized by their ability to get things done. ISFP, Bail Organa, the artist. Quiet, serious, sensitive, and kind. Loyal and faithful, disliking conflict. Have a keen appreciation for beauty due to their highly developed senses. Likely to be original and creative. Highly affectionate, but can be difficult to get to know. Live in the present and yearn for freedom, characterized by their desire to help and contribute to the well-being of others. ESTP, Han Solo, the promoter. Friendly, adaptable, and action-oriented doers who are focused on immediate results. Think on their feet and thrive in crises. Informal risk-takers who live fast-paced lives. Never allow rules to get in the way of their ambitions. Straightforward and realistic, taking criticism well. Characterized by their ability to get things done and work well with others. ESFP, Wicket, the performer. Outgoing, friendly, and fun-loving. Likely to be the center of attention in social situations. Love new experiences and live for the moment. Adapt readily to new people and environments and can get bored easily. Enjoy material comforts and want the best of what life has to offer. Characterized by their ability to create positive experiences for others. ESTJ, Darth Vader, the supervisor. Practical, realistic, organized, and strategic. Possess natural leadership qualities. Strict boundary setters who take personal responsibility very seriously. Intensely focused on getting results and seek ways to do so in the most efficient way possible. Characterized by their ability to preserve traditions and provide security for their loved ones. ESFJ, Jar Jar Binks, the provider. Warm-hearted, conscientious, and popular. Tend to put the needs of others over their own needs. Sensitive to criticism and need positive reinforcement to feel good about themselves. Supportive and generous, and can sometimes come across as overbearing due to their capacity for empathy. Characterized by their genuine concern for others, which drives everything they do. INFJ, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the counselor. Introspective, caring, sensitive, and complex. Strive for peace and seek to develop and guide others. value self-control and the pursuit of the greater good, live their lives with a greater purpose, and are devoted to the causes they believe in, characterized by the ability to connect with the essence of others and to identify their strengths. INTJ, Palpatine, the mastermind. Objective, independent, thorough, adaptable, with well-developed powers of concentration. Natural leaders who strive for perfection. Talented in bringing ideas from conception to reality. Expect perfection from themselves as well as others. Characterized by their desire to produce mastery and achievement that reflects their brilliance. INFP, Luke Skywalker, the idealist. Introspective, private, creative, and highly idealistic, driven by their values and interested in helping people and serving humanity. Adaptable and laid back unless a strongly held value is threatened. Imaginative, often talented in language and writing, characterized by their ability to be present with another person on a deep level. INTP, Yoda, the architect. Logical, original, reserved, and curious. Focus on ideas, theories, and explanations. Have a calm, serious exterior, but a deeply passionate soul. Appreciate and respect intelligence in others. Have a strong ability to stay on task. Characterized by their ability to design sophisticated systems and theories that improve the lives of others. ENFP, Qui-Gon Jinn, the champion. Enthusiastic, idealistic, inspiring, and creative. Actively advocate for what they feel to be important, attracting others to their causes with excellent people skills, warmth, and positivity. Excited by new ideas, but tend to get bored with details. Characterized by their ability to inspire and motivate others with their enthusiasm and passion for life. ENTP, R2D2, the inventor. Quick, innovative, curious, and resourceful. Have excellent ability to understand concepts and apply logic to find solutions. Introspective and carefree nonconformists who are bored by routine. Thrive at finding crafty solutions to technical problems, characterized by their ability to pursue and succeed at any risk-taking adventure. ENFJ, Padme Amidala, the giver. Warm, empathetic, charismatic, with excellent people skills. Highly sensitive to the emotions and needs of others, likely to find hidden potential in others and strive to help them fulfill it. Take their obligations to others very seriously. Characterized by their ability to help develop others and making a lasting difference in people's lives. And lastly, ENTJ, Leia Organa, the executive. Assertive, strategic, and decisive, with a natural desire to lead. Intelligent and well-informed, value knowledge and competence, are quick to see illogical and inefficient systems and develop intelligent solutions in response. Characterized by their ability to lead confidently and reach goals with excellence. That was provided in this clever way by www.geekinhills.com. As you see, the MBTI profiles can be split into 4 main parts. TJ, thinking and judging. FJ, feeling and judging. TP, thinking and perceiving. And remember that perceiving is how they take in information, whether they're planned or spontaneous. And FP, feeling and perceiving. So let's go over how combination types can be interpreted by others. Especially in a marriage, a TJ may come across to their spouse as controlling, distant, and unromantic. An FJ may be misinterpreted by their spouse as smothering and intrusive. A TP may be misinterpreted as harsh, insensitive, and cold. And an FP may be interpreted by their spouse as passive and self-absorbed. This was huge to me to see how my spouse was perceiving me and me him. So let's look at how each combination type says, I love you. TJ, they love through efficiency, reliability, and systems. FJ, they love through emotional connection, comfort, and harmony. TP loves through honesty, competence, and accuracy. And FP loves through authenticity, alignment, and altruism. So what is the best way to not love these types? Do the opposite of the thing they value. That's a sure way to reverse love for each type. Certain combinations work better in marriage than others. You can find out plenty about these dynamics in marriage at many websites, including 16personalities.com. Next, the Hartman Color Code. The Hartman Color Code is divided into 4 colors. Blues need integrity and appreciation. They focus on quality and creating strong relationships. Whites need acceptance and kindness. They are logical, objective, and tolerant of others. Reds need to look good technically, be right, and be respected. They are strong leaders and love challenges. Yellows need to be noticed and have fun. They are positive, sociable, and spontaneous. So let's break them down. More specifically, reds love power. They communicate logically, support their decisiveness, promote intelligence, want you to verbalize your feelings, and want you to demand their respect and attention. What you don't do for reds is embarrass them or attack them personally. Be slower and decisive, try to control them, and demand constant attention. The blue thrives with intimacy. So what to do? Appreciate them, make them feel secure, let them be expressive, promote their creativity, be sincere and genuine. What not to do? Don't make them feel guilty. Be rude or abrupt, push them into decisions, expect quick forgiveness, or expect spontaneity. Yellows, they live for fun. So what to do? Praise them. Accept their playfulness. Recognize their deep feelings. Value their sociability. Touch them physically. What not to do? Don't demand perfection. Ignore or push them. Control their schedule, or even give them too much leeway. Whites live for peace. What to do for them? Be kind. Give them space. Accept individuality. Listen quietly. Watch for nonverbal cues. And what not to do? Don't be cruel or insensitive. Don't force answers or confrontation. And don't be domineering and demanding. The color code in relationships. There's a natural blend to have a white marry a red. The red is logical, being directive and bossy, and the white is calmer and passive with independence, but they naturally blend together. Blue goes well with yellow. Both of them work through emotion. The blue is organized and disciplined, hoping for connection, and the yellow is playful and irresponsible. White and blue combinations are not very dynamic, but they get along well, because they're both not very needy. The most difficult combinations in marriage are blue and red. They are both very loyal and will struggle maybe even for a lifetime, but won't quit. White and yellow is the most uncommon marriage combination. In this dynamic, nobody wants to take the lead. How about when color code types marry the same color code? If two blues marry each other, they will be emotionally distraught for each other. Their secondaries will need to pull one or the other out of the emotion. So let's say one of them has a yellow secondary. They might be saying, let's go have fun, instead of empathizing here all day long. When two reds marry each other, this works as they divide responsibilities. For example, one inside the house, one outside the house. They don't do well working in the same space because they're too competitive. Two yellows. You're going to find these people pretty flighty with no long-term planning. And two whites is very uncommon because they're both too passive. Someone has to kick each other into gear. Whatever color you married, you needed most. If you married a red, you needed security. A yellow, you wanted fun. White, you wanted control. And blue, you wanted emotional connection. Though color coding does ask you about how you were like as a child, it's still a problem that your responses to these tests are conditional and environmental. They may not be the same in the various stages and settings of life. Also, your results may be based on what you think you should be instead of how you reluctantly really are. Which I appreciate about Carol Tuttle's energy profiling system, which we'll cover next. Carol Tuttle's energy profiling system is based upon your physiology and body language, which is genetic and/or you generally do subconsciously, so it can't be faked, though often a person will function in their wounded secondary instead of their primary strength. There are 4 types of energetic movement in the world. You express one of them in your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and you have since the day you were born. Type 1, nitrogen, the bright, animated person who has a gift for new ideas and possibilities. The type 1 is a light-hearted extrovert, judged as flighty, hyperactive, and unreliable. They are frustrated when life is too serious, and physiologically, they have a round or heart-shaped face, bright eyes, youthful animated features, and they walk with a bounce and talk with their hands. Type 2, oxygen, the soft and calming person who has a gift for gathering details and making plans. The type 2 is easygoing, introverted energy. They are judged as shy, wimpy, overly emotional, and they are frustrated when they are feeling unheard or ignored, or life is too intense. Physiologically, they have an oval face, almond eyes, blended soft features. They have a smooth, graceful walk and softened voice. Type 3, hydrogen, the swift and dynamic person who has a gift for moving into action quickly to create practical and lasting results. The type 3 has determined, extroverted energy. They are frustrated when lacking physical outlets, feeling thwarted. Physiologically, they have angular, triangle shape, chiseled, textured facial features. They walk with a heavy foot and speak with a more boisterous voice. Type 4, carbon, the structured and exact person who has a gift for looking at the world through a critical eye and perfecting it. The type 4 is reflective, introverted energy. They are frustrated by feeling disrespected, embarrassed, lacking time to focus or reflect, and physiologically they have an oval or rectangular face shape with straight, refined features. They walk with poise and upright posture and speak exactly. So let's look at the energy profiling type combinations in marriage. If a type 1 marries a type 1, they are going to have loads of fun. A type 1 to a type 2, this is fun with calming. A type 1 to a type 3, fun with action. 1 to type 4, fun with lightheartedness. The 2 marrying a type 2 has a very easygoing relationship. They are very relaxed and calming together. The type 2 marrying a type 3, easygoing, on the go. The type 2 to type 4, easygoing, perfecting. The type 3 marrying a type 3, they are super on the go, very accomplished. The type 3 to a type 4, on the go and perfecting. And a type 4 to a type 4, they are pretty perfecting. Of course they chose each other. My observation is that oftentimes one spouse will marry their secondary type. For example, a type 1 secondary 4 will marry a type 4. Now let's look at the problems in the relationship. A type 1 to 1, nobody's in charge. A type 1 marrying a type 2, one is too slow and one is too fast. A type 1 to a type 3, the 3 can be too driven and the 1 can get dragged along. A type 1 to a type 4, the type 4 can be too serious and the type 1 not serious enough. The type 2 marrying a type 2, they can get caught in the details and never move forward. Type 2 marrying a type 3, there are high expectations from the type 3 and the type 2 is too slow. The 2 to type 4 marriage, the type 2 wants intimacy and the type 4 wants effectiveness, which sometimes isn't a match because it may not be effective to slow down and be intimate. A type 3 to a type 3, not much calming going on here. Life is go, go, go. Type 3 to type 4, the type 3 may be too much movement for the type 4, and the type 3 doesn't really care about perfection. They just want to do and go. And then the type 4 to the type 4 is that there is pressure on both for perfection. When you appreciate strengths and soften the extremes of each energy type, you are more likely to thrive in the different combinations. For example, if a type 4 can settle down and appreciate the comfort of the type 2, and the type 2 can move just a little faster than comfortable for the type 4, they can get along better. You can take my brief quiz on the animal forgiveness types based on Carol Tuttle's energy profiling system in my Love Zone Marriage 8 class on couples languages. And of course, for a thorough assessment, I encourage you to go to myenergyprofile.com. You can see similarities and blurred lines in these various personality assessments. We aren't completely the exact typification of what any test says because of so many outlying factors to each individual, but they can give you a gauge in marriage and life. And keep in mind how the secondary weight makes a big difference. I have cleared up so many things and decreased guilt by realizing I'm going to do things differently than my spouse, and it's okay. I used to continually jump from caving in to what others want to working too hard despite my needing a break, from caring too much what others thought to not caring at all what others thought. In essence, I jumped from one personality type to another, and it wasn't serving me. It was a discombobulation of my true self. When I accepted that, 1, maybe I'm not that extroverted, so I can stop trying to be, and maybe I'm more of a thinker than feeler, and that's okay. And 2, no personality system is going to tell me how to be. I am uniquely me, just how that plays out. I came to a measure of peace about how I show up in the world and in my marriage. When I can be as true to myself as I know how, readjusting and realigning whenever it feels off, and tapping into love whenever possible, and allowing the same in my spouse, my sweet husband can just accept me for who I am without equivocation, and same thing with my accepting him. We don't need to change each other, and loving becomes an intriguing adventure full of ups and downs because, hey, that's life. My teen daughter assesses me well. She says, "Oh, you definitely need your space and your alone time, but you also need your moments of spaz." Consequently, I am an MBTI INTJ type, mostly, a color code type red-blue, and a Carol Tuttle energy type 4. And my husband gets to love me in all those quirky ways, and me, him. A word about CEN and relational trauma. Our brain is always on the alert, doing what it thinks is best for us. If you have had attachment breaches in life that may have closed you down, either the first, as in CEN, or childhood emotional neglect, or the worst, as in relational trauma, say in marriage, you probably haven't been living according to your true personality. Your true nature has been shut down, and it's your opportunity to recover that true part of you. Here are 9 signs you may suffer from CEN, or childhood emotional neglect. 1. You're afraid of relying on others, and you reject offers of support or care. 2. You have a hard time identifying your strengths and weaknesses, likes and dislikes, and life goals. 3. You are harder on yourself than you would be even on a stranger, with little self-compassion and understanding. 4. You blame yourself almost exclusively, direct your anger inward, or feel guilt or shame about your needs or feelings. 5. You feel numb, empty, or cut off from your emotions, or you feel unable to manage or express them. 6. You are easily overwhelmed and give up quickly. 7. You have low self-esteem. 8. You are extra sensitive to rejection. 9. You believe you are deeply flawed and that there's something about you that is wrong, even though you can't specifically name what it is. This looks like it could be a number of other diagnoses or symptoms of something else, but what if it all really began in childhood? For relational trauma, you can find out more about the symptoms of trauma in my Love Zone Marriage 7 class on changing thoughts. Some great resources for either are Running on Empty by Jonas Webb for CEN, and The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk for general trauma. The latter is some intensive reading, so you can also catch it in summaries online if that's more your style. My challenge to you: take these 3 tests: the MBTI through 16personalities.com, the Hartman Color Code at colorcode.com, and Carol Tuttle's energy profiling system at myenergyprofile.com. Determine what the results mean for you in marriage in being your best true self. The drama triangle. Matt had just received the diagnosis, high cholesterol. His doctor tells him he needs to change his diet and get some exercise if he doesn't want this to lead to heart disease. Here's how the conversation goes with his wife, Susan. Matt: the doc says I gotta clean up my eating and move my body more, but I really don't want to. Who likes eating and running like a rabbit? Susan responded, well, it's about time. You should see what I have to look at every day when I look at you. Matt: maybe I can't help it. Heart disease runs in my family, you know. And you're not really one to speak. When's the last time you worked out? Susan: what do you mean? I go walking with my friends several times a week. But don't worry, we can get you in a good plan to certainly please your doctor. 2 months later, Susan says, come on, Matt, it's time to get up and get exercising. You want to look good for that wedding next month. And remember, when you go out to that work lunch today, don't get the greasy steak and fries. A salad will be your best friend. Matt: you're right. I never seem to order what I should eating out. Can you get the oil in the car changed since I have to work out? I don't seem to have time to do what I used to. So let me introduce to you the drama triangle. At the top, we have the victor, or the rescuer, who is interested in being right. On the right corner, we have the villain, or the persecutor, who works through fear. And then on the last corner, we have the victim, or the loser, who works through blame. The victor is an enabler who wants to provide pain relief, give unsolicited advice, and wants the praise for it. The villain persecutor is critical, controlling, superior, and destructive. The victim, or the loser, is powerless, hopeless, stuck, with dreams denied. So let's look at each player in the drama triangle, beginning with the victim or loser. Phrases that they might say is, why does this happen to me? I cannot do anything about it. I am helpless. I am not responsible for how things turned out. If only others cared about me. I am in desperate need of someone who can get me out of it. And from a personality style of the victim loser, they might be, for example, the blue, a Carol Tuttle type 2, Myers-Briggs type IF combo type, because they base their life emotionally. They might also be yellow, a Carol Tuttle type 1, a Myers-Briggs EP combo type, as the victim loser, because if they can't make others happy, they are sad. The victim loser sees themselves as inadequate or insufficient and somehow get into the role of asking for help from people. The victim can be very manipulative and playing all sorts of games to keep the victor rescuer helping them and to keep the villain persecutor from criticizing them. The victor rescuer, the hero. The victor is involved in an unending game with a victim who's always helpless, always wrong, never can do anything right, and the victor depletes themselves in trying to help. They drain themselves of their own light, devoting their lives to saving the victim and meanwhile neglecting their own life. Then they become resentful. It feels good to be the savior, but stepping in where someone should be doing it themselves only makes the other person more dependent. To avoid being a victor, you can keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, on the things which truly are in your control, and be clear that what belongs to others is their business and none of yours. Victor rescuer phrases. You can't do this without me. Yes, you are right, said as their authority. You are not okay, but I am. Let me help you. If I do this for you, you must do something for me. They feel connected and capable when the other person is dependent on them. The victor rescuer personality style might, for example, be the red-white, Carol Tuttle type 3 or 4, Myers-Briggs EP combo types, because they're willing to extrovert themselves on your behalf and plan less, which means they may be more reactive. Think about this in the victor role. If we treat our spouse like a dependent, how can we then crawl into bed with them intimately at night after we've just wiped up their chin? Caretaking kills true intimacy. We've all seen it, the 70-year-old woman taking care of her husband like she's his mother. The villain persecutor. Well, the victim can never do anything right, but the villain persecutor always has to be right because they don't want themselves to feel like a victim inside, so the persecutor always has to win. The villain persecutor fears that they have something to lose, so they must one-up the other. Here are common phrases of the villain. If only you would have done what I told you. I would not be delayed if you kept your commitments. I did not expect this from you. I should have known better. You didn't do your job, and now I have to suffer. The villain persecutor personality style might be, for example, a blue Carol Tuttle type 2 Myers-Briggs ET combo because they extrovert their thinking, which may cause them to interfere with those outside themselves in a more demanding way. Sometimes each of these roles switches to a different role, like the victor might suddenly become the villain, or the victim might get even with the victor by becoming a villain. So then it gets complicated. Let's return to the Susan and Matt high cholesterol story with roles identified. Remember, Matt has just received the diagnosis, high cholesterol, and his doctor tells him he needs to change his diet and get some exercise if he doesn't want this to lead to heart disease. Matt: the doc says I gotta clean up my eating and move my body more, but I really don't want to. Who likes eating and running like a rabbit? Susan responded, well, it's about time. You should see what I have to look at every day when I look at you. She's playing the role of the villain, the persecutor. Matt: maybe I can't help it. Heart disease runs in my family. He's the victim. And you're not really one to speak. When's the last time you worked out? Suddenly he's the villain. Susan: what do you mean? I go walking with my friends several times a week. Now she's the victim. But don't worry, we can get you on a good plan to certainly please your doctor. Now she's the victor. 2 months later, Susan says, come on, Matt, it's time to get up and get exercising. You want to look good for that wedding next month. And remember, when you go out to that work lunch today, don't get the greasy steak and fries. Now she's being the villain. A salad will be your best friend. Now she's being the victor. Matt: you're right. I never seem to order what I should eating out. Now he's the victim. Can you get the oil in the car changed since I have to work out? I don't seem to have time to do what I used to. Now Susan is the victor. So ask yourself, what is your motivation? And that's where we turn the drama triangle into an empowerment dynamic when done right. So let's look at the 3 different identities that can counter the other damaging identities in the empowerment dynamic. The victim, loser, becomes the creator with the attitude, no complaining. The creator has options, answers from problem solving, and resilience. And they work from the ideal, I can do it. The victor, rescuer, becomes the coach with the attitude, no fixing. The coach's goal is support, assistance, and listening with empathy. The coach works from the ideal, how will you do it? And lastly, the villain persecutor becomes the challenger with the attitude, no blaming. The challenger's goal is growth, action, and assertiveness. The challenger works from the ideal, you can do it. These 3 new character identities takes the drama triangle from anxiety-based problem-focused to the empowerment dynamic of passion-based outcome-focused. Here's the rewrite of the Matt and Susan cholesterol story using the empowerment dynamic from the perspective of the challenger instead of the villain persecutor, coach instead of the victor rescuer, and creator instead of the victim loser. Matt: the doc says I gotta clean up my eating and move my body more, but I really don't want to. Who likes eating and running like a rabbit? Susan responded, is that so? Well, I'm sure you'll figure something out other than eating or running like a rabbit, huh? Now she's being the challenger. Matt: maybe I can't help heart disease as it runs in my family, but maybe I can beat this thing. You know, I used to like racquetball in college, and there's a new Asian restaurant that claims it has tasty and healthy bowls. Matt has now changed to the creator. Susan: Yeah, I am able to enjoy exercise because I love walking with my friends. Now she's the creator. Susan, is there any way I can help you? I could try some healthier recipes. Now she's being the coach. 2 months later, Susan says, I hope I'm looking better for that wedding next month. How are things going for you and your health plans, Matt? Now she's being the coach. I think you really are looking better. Now she's being the challenger. Matt says, yeah, I am feeling and looking better. I forgot how fun racquetball is. Now he's being the creator. Oh, hey, can you get the oil in the car changed since I'll be playing racquetball? I don't seem to have time to do what I used to. Susan, sorry, I get busy in my trying to be healthy too, but I'm sure you'll figure out a way to get the oil changed. And now she's being the challenger. How to get out of the drama triangle. 3 steps. First, embrace acceptance and willingness. I am willing to explore what roles I want to play. I want to learn when I fall into their trap. I believe they are damaging for my health and relationships. I am committed to bring about a change for myself and others. 2. Recognize patterns. Just by crossing the barrier to being more open, we can give permission to our mind to form new connections and discover new realities. Notice how others engage with you and take on a different perspective. 3. Consciously withdraw. Come up with new scenarios and options so you don't defer to the usual pattern, and set boundaries so you can stick with more healthy reactions. We'll talk about boundaries in the next section. Victim loser to creator actions to take. 1. Write down your goals, clearly stating the results you want to achieve. 2. Think hard about how you can achieve them yourself without help from others. Look for your strengths. 3. Identify what prevents you from achieving these goals. 4. Remove the roadblocks and take small steps in the direction of your goals. Remember, motivation comes from action, not procrastination. Victor, rescuer, to coach questions to ask yourself. Is it my business? Is it your business to rescue? Was I clearly asked to do something? Not giving unsolicited help. Do I want to do it? Can I do it? And lastly, am I doing less than my share? And I really do need to step it up? Villain persecutor to challenger actions to take. 1. View others as creators. Ask yourself, what is my intention? To put down, look good, or be right, or to build up and support the other? 2. Be open to new ideas and experiences. Challenge yourself to learn something new that makes you feel uncomfortable. Then follow your curiosity. This loosens your grip on the need to know. 3. Develop self-awareness in the moment by learning to pause and listen to your internal talk. You may notice your ego's need to stay in control and be right. In addition, when you hear that inner villain voice, pause and ask, what is here for me to learn? 4. Cultivate compassion. Be compassionate with yourself and others as you and they learn and respond to act as life challengers. Personality styles from the empowerment dynamic of coach, challenger, and creator, though they can all be from all personalities, might most naturally be the creator, who was once a victim, might be a yellow type 1, Myers-Briggs N types, as they are more imaginative for solutions, and EP also as they are playfully forward-moving. The coach was rescuer, might be blue or white, a Carol Tuttle type 2, a Myers-Briggs STJ, or an F also, because they're into feeling things, which a coach would be. And a challenger, who was the persecutor, might be a red type 3 or 4, Myers-Briggs TJ or TP type. The switch from the damaging victim, victor, villain roles to the helpful creator, challenger, coach roles are often shifted when a wounded secondary type becomes strengthened. When a Carol Tuttle type 2-1, for example, lets out their playful secondary fun-loving type 1, they are able to be more true to themselves in relaxing and being calm. When a color code red-blue honors their generous secondary blue, committed altruism, they are able to assert themselves in a powerful red way with a benefit to the people in mind. Think of how that plays out in marriage. A powerful red-blue in their committed relationship to their spouse creates a fierce loyalty. Isn't this fun? All the ways to appreciate these combinations in marriage. So here's your assignment. The next conversation you have with your spouse, simply notice if you are being the villain, persecutor, the victor, rescuer, or the victim, loser. With this basic awareness, can you shift relationships to being the challenger, the coach, and the creator? Boundaries. I used to have no concept of boundaries. What was mine was yours. Mi casa, su casa. It seemed Christ-like and charitable to let someone crowd my space and take my things. Wasn't that love and sacrifice? And wouldn't that selflessness be rewarded in my future at some point? I remember my older brother urging me to read Boundaries, When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life by Cloud and Townsend. I read through it thinking that, yes, of course I have boundaries, until I could see that I really had none. For example, I actually feared that if I didn't let my family have all they wanted of me, something terrible would happen, even through some weird fate. If I don't always give them my undivided attention, it might be the last time I ever see them, and I will feel regretfully devastated I didn't give them my all when I could have. When I saw the way everything bled into each other and how I justified it one way or another, then was strict in ways I wasn't actually in control of and got frustrated when it didn't go my way, I then could see how I was boundaryless. As I tried to wrap my mind around what being Christ-like really meant, I had to think of how the Lord has boundaries. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. That's in Matthew 7:14. God doesn't say, free for all, anyone can pass through the gates, no big deal. Jesus says, keep my commandments, not, I don't care what you do, it really doesn't matter if you keep my commandments. Jesus asked mocking and scornful people to leave, such as when healing a young girl, referred to in Mark 5:40. Jesus went up into the mountains to pray. Luke 6:12 says, he went out into a mountain to pray and continued all night in prayer to God. He didn't just let life swirl around him while he attempted to be inspired. I knew things had changed for me when one day, several years after reading the Boundaries book, and after much practice in boundaries, I realized the following. I had been gifted one year with a pink toolbox, which I proudly stored in the hall closet, only to be used by me, because, hey, it was pink, my color. My husband and kids had their own tool supplies, somewhere. But soon, everyone in the house realized they could always find a screwdriver in my pink toolbox in the hall closet. And then I found myself opening the pink toolbox to find my screwdriver missing. And I felt furious. My pink screwdriver! I respectfully let the family know that my tools needed to be in my toolbox so I could find them. I'll let you know the boundary formula I used when I notified them about what I expected in a few minutes. Good marriages don't need boundaries. Boundaries are terms, conditions, or stipulations around which a person will accept and comply with the accompanying consequences as the effect. Look at why a good marriage would not need boundaries. Both spouses give and take and are there for each other. They communicate, collaborate, and complement. Both respect and trust each other. They act upon the roles they've agreed upon. There is genuine acceptance for each. They know when to be responsible for their own stuff. Both cherish and choose each other. They wouldn't even consider doing something offensive or hurtful to each other. They make choices, not walls. Love, not restrictions. But not every marriage has it all figured out, so let's look a little deeper. Maurice Harker of Life Changing Services says about boundaries. If you think boundaries are silly and unnecessary, put one out there to see what happens. If he rebels and pushes your boundaries, you needed it. If he says, sure, I can allow that because I love you and want your best, then boundaries are silly and unnecessary. When it feels awkward and uncomfortable to create and maintain boundaries for your own protection, you are probably doing it right, and you probably wouldn't need to do it if your spouse was functioning like a friend. This next valuable information on boundaries was compiled by therapist Julia Christina. A few reasons why we don't set boundaries. 1. People will think that we're selfish. But not having enough for yourself puts you in an even worse place than being selfish. 2. People will think we're difficult, and so we lie instead, then become bitter and resentful, which truly makes us a difficult person. 3. People will expect us to be meeting their needs, which isn't our responsibility, it's theirs. 4. We can get attention from others when our needs are not being met, but then we become passive-aggressive, which creates more upset. 5. We can feed compulsions, like excessive food or shopping. We can feed our indulgences within. And 6. The sixth reason why we don't set boundaries, we may be afraid that we are going to make someone else uncomfortable or be offended. But that's not in our power. You can't make anyone else feel something. What comes to mind when you think about why you might not set a boundary with your spouse? Is it because of safety or defensiveness issues or pride or fear of abandonment? Here are some of the outcomes of having no boundaries. We lose direction of our lives. We become overwhelmed, stressed, and feel out of control. A fence around a tennis court is a good thing because you don't have to keep chasing after the ball. We actually do well with less choice. We've become emotionally and mentally flat because we don't know what we want or who we are. Boundaries don't mean that I am mean, they mean that I am clear. We teach others to not have boundaries either, which leads to their own overwhelm and exhaustion. We later blame the people who ran over our boundaries when it was our fault for not making them clear. We may take out the anger on someone else or take it out on ourselves, leading to shame. Can you see other outcomes of not having boundaries? Here are some truths of setting boundaries. If we don't set boundaries, nobody knows what they are, so there's no clarity or definition for ourselves or in our relationships. 2. We have power over our choices, and that is all, which means we must set our own boundaries to keep in our own energy, not others. 3. When we respect our boundaries, it is much easier to respect other people's boundaries. 4. Our fear of boundaries indicates our motivations. Do we act out of guilt and fear, or generosity, freedom, and love? 5. Avoiding boundaries can cause bigger problems later on. 6. Setting boundaries is courageous, as you'll meet resistance within yourself and from other people, like building a muscle. We have to use it. We are able to define ourselves through expressing our desires. Boundaries are a sign of self-respect. Adam M. Moore, PhD and licensed marriage family therapist, outlines some rules of engagement. I won't engage with you out of obligation. I can choose when I will engage with you, emotionally, physically, sexually, and so forth. I don't do so out of pity, killing true intimacy. I will detach with love when necessary. If I feel threatened, I will detach with love and stay emotionally connected to myself through self-care. I will speak kindly about myself. I will support you in ways that work for me. I won't sacrifice myself on the basis of your self-satisfaction. Now let's look at how the players in the empowerment dynamic, opposed to the drama triangle, use boundaries. The challenger from the drama triangle, as the once villain persecutor, uses boundaries to keep in their own power and refrain from over-control. Challenger application of boundaries. She states her boundaries. I have 10 minutes to talk and listen. I hear you have a problem. What do you want to do about that? As the solution is figured by the creator, I want you to keep your agreement. Will you have it done by Tuesday? If you don't, I will arrange someone else to do the task. You choose. The coach, as once the victor rescuer, uses boundaries also to keep in their own power and not over control. She states her boundaries. I have 10 minutes to talk and listen. So if you could wave a magic wand or push an instant button and you could have what you wanted here, what would the outcome look like? And what problems get in the way? I have seen you succeed. We've talked about who will do what in our marriage. So if you can't make this happen, like I know you usually can, I will arrange for the things that affect me to happen in another way. I don't mean to step on toes, but something needs to get done here. And I love you. The creator, once the victim loser, uses boundaries for themselves as they take control. The creator tells themselves,
This, fill in the blank, is what I want. I may ask for help, but I will follow through on my part by, fill in the blank. Give self a reasonable goal, a time to finish it, and how you will measure the progress. When I feel I can't do it, how can I keep control as the creator without dumping on someone else? Reinstating self-boundaries. What are my backup options? Then continue to acknowledge your own strengths and appreciate what goes well. Also, have self-compassion. If a self-boundary needs to be rewritten and a break taken, so be it. Let's go back to our example story of Susan and Matt with the empowerment dynamic. Susan says, "You say you don't have time to get the oil changed in the car because of your new health routine, but we've agreed that's your job. I have 10 minutes to talk about getting the oil changed in the car." Matt, "Yeah, when you're shopping, you can just run it over to Jiffy Lube. It shouldn't be much for you." Susan, "We have other things I've agreed to do, and it's not as easy as you say to manage a cart full of groceries into a car that just got out of the oil changing bay. So what else can you do?" Here she's being the coach. "We're leaving on that big trip in a week, and the oil really needs to be changed. If it's not changed by then, I will swap you jobs. You can do the grocery shopping and I'll get the oil changed. Or we could hire it out and it comes out of your fund budget. Or we rent a car for the trip and it comes out of your fund budget." Here Susan's being the challenger. Matt, "Now that I think about it, there's a place a few blocks from the racquetball courts. I can drop the car off before I play and count the few blocks to and from as part of my exercise. Don't worry, hun, I'll figure out a way." Now he's being the creator. Note, you may think this sounds immature to be having this kind of conversation in marriage, and to a degree it is. But you and I both know that some personalities are less responsible and need some accountability, or are overbusy and need to juggle priorities better. The other spouse offsets that irresponsibility in other endearing ways, like how they have fun, or are able to connect, or can provide for the family so well. But it only does you good to pull out of unhealthy controlling roles in marriage and create systems that work for both of you and keep you both out of resentment and in love. Here are some tips for setting boundaries. 1. What feeling is going to allow me to want to set a boundary? Calm, confidence, resolve? Remember, my wants, needs, and preferences matter too. 2. Use I statements, not blaming statements, with priorities based on principles and values. 3. With your boundaries I statement, state what you would really love, not what you're tired or resentful about. 4. Don't live at your edge, or you'll always be barely pushed over your boundaries. And 5. Respect the no space between the healthy space and the absolute limit. Respond to your boundaries within that space so that you don't get into the resentment or attack place. Set aside your no space, or you will have no space. Back to the pink toolbox. Here is the boundary formula. When you have used my tools and they are gone, I will ask you to find them or replace them, or I'll hide my toolbox so you can't find it. So that I can always find my screwdriver, and I love you. That is the boundaries formula. When I perceive that you, fill in the blank, I will, fill in the blank, so that, fill in the blank. And you see the chocolate cake there? If there were no edges or boundaries of where to pump that frosting, we'd have a big chocolate, but yummy mess. Boundaries are indeed good. I had to have faith in God that everything was happening just right in the things I was afraid of to institute boundaries. That when I was clear and consequential about what happened outside me by lovingly using boundaries, I had much better boundaries to honor inside me. So here's your homework. Choose a conflict in your marriage that has you feeling resentful and practice the boundaries formula with it. When you, fill in the blank, I will, fill in the blank, so that, fill in the blank.
Do you remember Dan and Charlotte and their riotous gun-shooting neighbors camping experience from the first of this course? Well, there's something to be said about Charlotte having her own back, being able to self-comfort, or find safety in the car to be able to step it up inside herself to do something to feel better about her situation instead of the trepidation she experienced as she and her baby Jake fell into fitful sleep. I guess you could call it manning up, which is what we'll talk about next: femininity and masculinity. I remember when I first realized I seemed to work from masculine energy, but tried desperately to fill my feminine role as a soft wife and mother. I've taken many gender role tests online that measure femininity and masculinity, and you can too, there are many, and I never seem to quite fall into one consistently. But when I am most honest in these tests, I find there is definitely masculinity in the way I push through life, hoping to succeed and accomplish and feel good about what I do day in and day out, which wife and mother roles didn't fulfill for me as much as I hoped it would. Men and women have definite differences we can't ignore or deny. A woman's body is the only force in the world capable of transporting souls from the unseen world into the physical world. But I have come to find a balance between the two is helpful. You've heard of yin, in, the feminine energy, and yang, out, the masculine energy, light and dark, night and day, hot and cold, sun and moon, up and down. These are examples of dualities that keep the universe functioning as it is. The yin-yang sign shows dots within both, which represent how both has one and the other, and they often aren't clear in their boundaries together, but a blurred blending of the two, as you see here. Here are the traits of masculine and feminine energy. Masculine: confident, logical, focused, strong, stable, clear, assertive, goal-driven. Feminine: nurturing, intuitive, creative, generous, flowing, caring, receptive, and grateful. I think it's fascinating to look at toxic, unhealthy femininity and masculinity provided here by subconsciousservant.com. The unhealthy feminine creates drama, becomes upset easily, is always angry, sad, or depressed, acts greedy and entitled, plays the victim, communicates vaguely and is passive-aggressive, judges others and gossips, ignores heart messages, lives confused about her own emotions, lacking clarity, blocks creativity unknowingly, and represses her sexuality. The negative masculinity acts protectively aggressive, lives offense-orientated, gives commands, can't commit, objectifies women, gets angry very easily, creates more problems through aggression, and is always in competition with other people. And here are ideas of healthy femininity and masculinity. The divine feminine is understanding, shows compassion, expresses positive emotions, allows herself to receive, forgives easily, communicates clearly, has empathy, lives from the heart, is in touch with her emotions, easily expresses herself creatively, easily expresses herself sexually. The divine masculine is assertive dominant, defense-orientated, willing to negotiate, family-orientated, respects and values women, is calm and balanced, solves problems rapidly, and makes friends easily. When honoring both parts in yourself in a balanced way, you have the gender role sweet spot, as you see here, mixing the masculine and the feminine, but still also honoring their respective gender roles. So here are some suggestions for enhancing feminine energy. Nurture your creativity. Develop your intuition. Allow yourself to receive. Learn to express your emotions healthily. Develop your communication skills. And suggestions for enhancing your masculine energy. Be a decision maker. Develop your thinking abilities. Practice physical activity. Become financially independent. Find a career you love. Be willing to provide and protect. Here's an interesting dichotomy explained by Tony Robbins. Masculine to masculine energy has commonality, but not passion. If a man is tired or stressed and eases too much into femininity, he finds commonality with the women, not passion. And same for the feminine energy. If she is stressed and works too strongly from masculine energy, passion is killed. Opposites are important here in creating draw one to the other. Going a step further, there are 3 triggers that will cause a masculine energy to adopt a feminine mask: feeling criticized,
feeling controlled, or feeling closed off. Because a man feels complemented by feminine energy, if it's gone, the woman doesn't feel protected or safe. There are 3 triggers that will cause a feminine energy to adopt a masculine mask. That is, feeling unsafe, feeling unseen, or not feeling understood. And when a woman puts on a masculine mask from being stressed and tired, there will be no romance, just friction. It's like airplane wings. The right wing of an airplane is opposite the left wing. They look exactly the same except they are opposite each other. Both wings are equal but opposite. This is so that the airplane can fly. One wing is no more important than the other. The same is true with man and woman. They both have their mainly feminine and masculine roles to play. You need both. Of course, we see men and women switch roles, and I believe it has a lot to do with personalities. The guy may be more nurturing and still embrace his masculinity. You've seen how various personality styles may represent either gender differently. A woman may be more executively powerful, yet she can be graceful and kind in her own ways. So what to do about this balance? Here's a suggestion to reclaiming healthy gender roles by Kim and Kirk Duncan of 3 Key Elements. If a woman is able to take care of herself at the first of the day and at the end of the day, she anchors in her femininity through nurturing bookends to her day. She is then able to draw things to her. If a woman takes care of others but not herself, she becomes driven in a masculine way to nurture and care for others, which puts her in the masculine energy, which creates conflict with the man, and she becomes an unprofitable chaser instead of a drawer. Men are driven and go after things, but it doesn't always serve them to always be on the go, 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 because then he becomes aggressively rough. If he can begin and end his day with his masculinity and soften up through his day by being complimenting and helpful, he can finish off in a way that serves him and her when she needs it the most. He can drive for things in his bookendish way, and she can draw things to her through beginning and nurturing actions for herself. At the end of the day, the man takes over with his driven ways when she needs to slip back into nurturing. Brilliant. This may require you asking your man to become your masculine part at the end of the day, so you can finish off in a feminine energy and sleep well. Here are a few tickets to my balancing femininity that I've found. Engaging in daily meditation to be able to reach my core essence. Who am I really? Accepting the masculinity of my personality, letting my husband be true to himself. Determining what is serving me and what is not. It doesn't serve me to always be pushing forward in masculine energy. It leads to burnout. Finding the heart-mind balance to be true to me. I sometimes ignore my mind and settle in on my heart to hear its messages to find this balance. Reaching out to other sources to balance femininity, not expecting marriage to fulfill all my feminine and masculinity needs. I'll tell you what, volleyball seems to serve both the feminine and the masculine needs for me, both in its softness and playfulness and in the drive. Back to Dan and Charlotte camping with gunfire. Charlotte can become more protective and masculine when she isn't feeling safe, or ask more for his protection. Dan, I'm not feeling good about this. I'd like some comfort from you. Dan can become more feminine to empathize with how she isn't feeling strong. He can become more masculine to take care of his sweetheart and sweet baby boy. If you are a woman like me and sometimes act from more masculine energy sometimes, I want you to ask yourself a question. What would be good or bad about being more feminine? If you think it's bad, will you feel more weak, not as powerful? Are you afraid to receive and then you'll have to give? Will nothing get done if it's not you? And why? And then I'd like you to consider adopting or readopting more feminine energy. So, I'd like you to do an activity you will love. Choose one way today to honor your femininity. Here are 5 practices that will help a woman radiate feminine power and get back into her natural flow. 1. Dancing. To get out of your head and into your body. Allow your body to express the music as if you are translating it into a form of language. 2. Adornment. Adorning your space with anything that brings a smile to your face helps nurture this craving. Free day. A day of no planning.
Allowing yourself to just flow and be in the moment can be one of the most relaxing feelings for the feminine. Make zero plans and just allow yourself to do whatever you feel like from moment to moment. Creativity. The divine feminine in all of us is associated with creative energy and life force energy. Expand your mind and see where in your life you are creating something out of nothing. And fifth, sensuality. To get out of logical thinking, incorporate more sensuality into your life, intentionally using the senses to experience life with pleasure. A warm bath, a decadent treat, pleasing aromas, stirring music. You get the idea. Attachment and differentiation. I find research by Roger K. Allen, marriage expert, quite interesting. Would you like to know the biggest complaint of women about their husband? According to Allen, the biggest complaint is he doesn't listen. And the biggest complaint of men? That their wife is always trying to change them. Allen says, the needs of men and women are different. Men are motivated and empowered when they feel needed. Women need to feel cherished and supported. Yet I find the opposite is true in my marriage. My husband wishes I was a more soft-feeling type and wants me to listen to and understand him better. He wants to be cherished. On the other hand, I want to be accepted just as I am, even if I exhibit some masculine characteristics, and I like to feel needed, to give acts of service to feel like I'm contributing to a good relationship. I have been pleased to validate myself in finding that, according to my personality, my red-blue Carol Tuttle perfecting type 4, rare female Myers-Briggs type INTJ, I am okay to be just as I am. And other women are like me. In fact, my research in dealing with hundreds of women with a life-changing services programs tells me that about 1/3 of the women are opposite their husbands. The husband is the soft-feeling type, and the woman is more driven. Nothing wrong with that. Yes, I have to work on enhancing my feminine energy, but I have found it is a beautiful thing when bold meets kind. I can accept that I am an analytic, delightful goal seeker who pursues loving in a powerful way. Charlotte's manning up from the last section is part of differentiation. Dan wasn't as concerned about the shooting guns as she was, but she remained dependent on her spouse for a feeling of safety he wasn't providing. She had different concerns that Dan tried to justify in his own unconcerned way, which didn't work for her. She tried to respond the way he saw the situation, which is a codependent reaction, to try to think as he thinks, a loss of a self. The ideal is interdependence, which is a part of differentiation. Interdependence allows partners who are each capable of handling their own emotional lives to focus on meeting their own and each other's ever-evolving goals and agendas in response to shifting circumstances, rather than on keeping one another from falling apart. It is marked by flexibility and focuses on strengths. Dependent partners, by contrast, spend their lives compensating for each other's limitations and needs. That last paragraph is from Psychology Today in an article, How to Grow Up. Jennifer Finlayson Fife says, well-functioning people are able to accept individual differences and acknowledge the humanity of others. Here are the concerns of differentiation by Jennifer Finlayson Fife. 1. Are you dependent on your spouse so you don't have to develop yourself, as in a sense of security, direction, and making a difference? 2. Undifferentiated can look like, I will forsake my development if you make me feel good about me, which is validation-based. We may depend on the validation we get from each other in our perspective roles to underfunction in our individual development. When that's ruptured, it's extremely disorienting. The undifferentiated man says, I get to feel superior, and you take care of me. The woman says, I will be needy, and you take care of me. We want to matter to others, but belong to ourselves, both independency and autonomy, closeness and separation, opposite sides of a spectrum. Are we dependent on the good functioning of other people for our own good functioning? A differentiated person asks,
If I can't count on them, what do I have to develop in myself to be a more wiser, more solid person? With differentiation, you have more capacity for love because you are true to you and love comes out naturally. Differentiation occurs interpersonally. An article from couplesinstitute.com says, "Sadly, unfolding differentiation frightens many partners because it signals that we are different. I believe this can trigger primitive anxiety, fear of being left or cast out. In their attempts to calm this anxiety, partners often try to inhibit growth in one another. They may also expect a lot from the other and little from themselves. They may deceive themselves about their own role in the problem." Now think back to the introduction of this course to the cave experience. We talked about secure attachment in feeling stable and safe. But we can't work by attachment alone. Marriage expert David Schnarch says, "Attachment not only reduces adults to infants, it also reduces marriage to a quest for safety, security, and compensation for childhood disappointments. We've eliminated from marriage those things that fuel our essential drives for autonomy and freedom. It becomes a trap that actually prevents us from growing up. Instead of infantilizing us, marriage can and must become the cradle of adult development." So let's compare and contrast attachment and differentiation. This next little part is from themissingexperience.com. Attachment-focused work helps couples create safety together. Differentiation work helps couples stand on their own 2 feet, so you aren't dependent on someone seeing you, validating you, hearing you, always agreeing with you, etc. Differentiation isn't about being disconnected. It's really about being kind and connected and keeping your center in the face of differences that are naturally going to happen when any 2 people come together and try and share time, let alone a life together. But remember, you can't expect to change your spouse to accommodate your attachment and differentiation needs. The only thing you have a choice in is how you might respond to them. And if you need outside support to fulfill attachment and differentiation needs, you do it. A good friend, a therapist, a wise man or woman, like a relative or a neighbor you trust. Outside people can enrich and strengthen marriage by adding to your cup of love. You need both attaching to someone to know they will be there for you enough to make marriage union worth it, and differentiation to keep your sense of self, while integrating with the other in a healthy interdependence, which makes marriage a joy. I repeat from Jennifer Finlayson Fife. Well-functioning people are able to accept individual differences and acknowledge the humanity of others. Here's some fun ideas to increase differentiation and increase attachment, both things. 1. To increase differentiation, allow your spouse a day off. No expectations anywhere. Secondly, go on a date night, and for the first half, you do exactly what you want to do, and the last half, you do exactly what your spouse wants to do. No complaining or trying to change it. Couple of ways to increase attachment. 1. Give undivided attention to your spouse for at least 10 minutes a day. And also, text them reasons why you appreciate them each night for the next week. Satisfying needs. We've explored through attachment and differentiation. Wave, cave, lighthouse. Do you feel differentiated? Withdraw, pursue cycles. Personality strengths and challenges in marriage. Myers-Briggs types, the color code, and Carol Tuttle energy types. Drama triangle, becoming the creator, challenger, and coach. Understanding boundaries in how to be true to you. The feminine and masculine balance, among other things. So let me emphasize the importance of the needs flower. We may say, I need you to do this for me to be happy in this marriage. Many outcomes may result from the spouse hearing this, from feigned obedience, compliance, trying to do it, even when our heart isn't in it. The personality may be too conflicting. Belligerence, you can't make me. It's too outside our personality and character definitions. Over-sacrificing, resulting in losing self, not honoring individual character considerations.
Ashok Gupta of the Meaning of Life Experiment says, "True knowing comes from calming the mind and opening the heart." So I'd like to introduce to you the needs flower. The needs flower has 3 parts to calm the mind and open the heart. With the needs flower, we have the need for myself, which is self-love. I take care of my needs. I know me best. The need for my spouse, which is knowing. He figures me out by knowing me. And lastly, the need for both, sharing and self-accountability. I tell him what I need without expectation because I will find it some way or another. And then in the middle is the needs sweet spot. Note, it's still his choice to work towards fulfilling your needs. When done and given freely, due to true desire on his part, needs are then truly satisfied for both. Also, because of personal differences, you may not get all your love needs from your spouse. In this case, work on self-love and outside love. And then there's his needs flower. The need for him is self-acceptance. He takes care of his needs, knowing himself best. The need for me, which is learning. I figure him out by learning him. And then, lastly, the needs for both, sharing and self-accountability. He tells me what he needs, without expectation. I just may not be able to do it all for him. And the result of fulfilling needs in marriage may be acceptance. Maybe just realizing honoring their needs is doable, purely reaching out in self-full love. Knowing you'll get what you need by honoring your true character also, because you work on differentiation and interdependency. So I'd like you to ponder on this concerning your marriage. How do our differences complement each other? Why is our marriage union special and unique? What do we do for each other that no one else can do? Then, sit down together with your spouse for dessert together and talk about it. Marie Callender pies rock. Marriage alchemy. The philosopher's stone is made up of a large circle with a triangle inside, with a square inside the triangle, with a circle inside the square. The big circle represents truth and the cosmos, a harmonious universe that is infinite with no end or boundaries. The triangle represents the union of the mind, body, and soul, or enlightenment, also representing the Holy Trinity of Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, and Holy Ghost. The square within represents the material elements, air, fire, earth, and water, similar to Carol Tuttle's energy types of nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. The square also represents the male and reality, and the circle represents the female and consciousness. Inside the circle, the 2 halves of nature, yin, in or female, and yang, out or male, are brought together by the Almighty through the process of alchemy, the merging of the physical and spiritual natures. Squaring the circle is the metaphor of attempting to fit a square peg into a perfectly round hole, which is considered 2 inherently incompatible things. But if you reverse that and have the smallest circle inscribed within a square, mathematically, both of these figures have the same area. The square outside of the circle has the remainder with the same area as the circle itself, making them equal and complementary, making male and female equal. The alchemical marriage is duality of the most revered and possible powerful union. It is the perfect conjunction, intimate bonding of duality, and signifies the pure, deep harmony which occurs whenever the masculine and feminine elements of nature combine into one. Now, can you see why God says in Genesis, after creating the world and humankind, "It is not good that man should be alone"? The union of man and wife together is unlike any other power on earth, except God's. We've covered many topics about how we are different and how to embrace that difference. So I'd like you to complete a capstone project for this course that helps you identify and celebrate those differences. I'd like you to take this seriously as I have in discovering what makes your spouse tick, what makes them happy, what makes you happy, what you are not responsible for in their happiness, and how to make your union a blessing and a treasure by knowing intimately about each other. You'll do this by referring to the questions in the included guide, My Guy, My Gal. By answering these questions together with my spouse, we have shared and discovered I'll go to the basketball game with him, but he has to be okay with my bringing a book. He gives me my space in my whoa man cave, and I remember to daily connect with him. When he asks me for advice, instead of rescuing him, I ask him clarifying questions until he comes up with his own solution. I often take the lead in dealing with scheduling and finance issues, and he is 5 times better with his detail-oriented mindset for fixing things around the house. For me, I like flowers in winter when I don't already have flowers growing in my flower garden. Roses are best, fire and ice flavor, but he can vary it from the grocery store. And no vase. I already have plenty of vases. My husband does not want ties as gifts, but he does like random snacky stuff. I bought him $100 worth of fiery buffalo potato chips and specialty granola bars for his last birthday, and he loved it. And we both prefer outings and getaways to physical gifts you wrap up. I have learned to tell the truth about where I really am, and he knows that as I do that, I am able to more fully love him. And ultimately, we find we both really are on the same page. We sometimes just take different ways to get there. Don't expect to do My Guy, My Gal guide quickly. It may take several months or longer, spread over many dates, many pieces of pie, or just random moments you have to connect and communicate. I hope you have found great value in learning about how differences in our individual character and makeup can affect marriage, and what you can do to forge strong and loving bonds. I wish you the very best in your marital journey.